Welcome to the Smoking Word. Welcome to the Smoking Word.
Listen, hold on. I'm in my car right now. I would stand up and give you a standing ovation, but I'm gonna give you a standing car ovation. Listen, first of all, before we start, I want to welcome you to the Smokin' Word podcast. First of all, because I wanted to get you on for a long time, like I told you, but you've been cave dwelling. I decided not to stalk you, but check this out. Before I wanted to say this. So I'm in the middle of a move, and my whole internet and everything went to shit. But I said, listen, there's no way I'm not getting motherfucking. I say Richie Underdog. I don't know if you're still known by that on the streets.
Anything, Underdog works. Anything. Richie Numbskull.
Yeah. I forgot the numbskull shit. I forgot. That's the OG. But listen, so what happened was I was like, fuck that. I got in the car because on the real, like I tell you, I got questions for you. I was like, when I caught a couple of what do you call it? I caught a couple of things of Underdog playing, and I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, I come out of the cave every once in a while, man.
Yeah.
It's rare because I like to just stay in this cave, but every once in a while I got to get out, get some oxygen.
Hell yeah.
Get my midlife crisis on.
Yeah, in all fairness, you never not said you were not doing it, in all fairness, but this seems like a long hiatus that I did it.
Well, it always seems that way because, well, first of all, let me say it's great to see you, Hoya. Great to see you, hear your voice. You look, by the way, you look more fit and more handsome than ever.
Thank you. I'm going on the Richie Underdog freaking book of a fly guy because we're gonna get into that too because I got some of it. But anyway, thank you. Go ahead.
Thanks for having me on. No, every once in a while, it always seems like a hiatus because I am, all jokes aside, I'm not someone that maintains a kind of like self-promotion thing. I've always felt weird about stuff like that. I wasn't really cut out for social media. I have a private Instagram account. I'm not on Facebook. This is not in any way, saying anything negative about people who are. It's great. The world has moved on. But yeah, I've just never been good at that. So it always does seem like I'm emerging from a hiatus. I mean, truth is, music is always on my mind. If I'm not strumming my guitar, I'm writing down some poetry that might turn into a lyric. That might, I'm always creating something. But and every once in a while, one of these old bands of mine gets dusted off, and we get on stage.
Yeah, but this was the thing with me. Well, one, of course, I love Underdog, and I got some Underdog questions. But to be honest with you, I'm more than into another guy. You know what I mean? And I was already going to shows. I was, obviously we wanted that meathead shit. We were on that meathead shit. And this is this is one of my hidden one of my theories on music because I got a lot of theories. I love some of them are real. Listen, some of them are real, some of them are not. But they all obviously obviously you are a guy always working on music and into another out of the New York hardcore dudes from my generation, which was after your generation. You were one of the first guys to do that next thing. You know what I mean? That not just do a metal band. All right, we're gonna go this way kind of thing.
Sure. I never felt comfortable, just in a rut. I always, and look, we knew, when Drew and I first got together and just formed the idea of Into Another, part of that was not in any way conforming to any kind of preconception, to any genre, to any scene, to anything. But it was really just about making the music that just poured out of us at the time.
This is all I'm saying. I like to think we helped you, not consciously, but so that Into Another was during the time when let's keep it real. There was also a lot of violence that,
Yeah.
I got my hands up at, whatever that my people and some of us may have been and not
Yeah.
a part of. Long story short, obviously the scene was, obviously, you already were doing some other type of stuff, but I remember at that time the hardcore shows stopped, and now there's no more shows because I'm one of the guys that I shit it where I ate, and now I had to eat it. And now we're like, okay, fuck, there's no more hardcore shows, so we'd roll up to the ska shows. Next, but you know how it was. It
Yeah.
was all part of the umbrella. But now there's CB's. Richie got a bet into another. There's a show at CB's. Let's roll up. I guarantee you, if you bust out tapes at your first probably 15
Oh,
shows,
oh,
it
I
was
know.
me, Freddie, a bunch of us.
No, absolutely.
Ezek.
Not only do we know it, I hope you know that, especially Drew and I are coming out of that scene, and the other half Into Another came out of the metal scene. But
Yeah.
Drew and I were so grateful. And we always said it at the time. We had no expectations. We obviously had great reverence and love for the whole hardcore scene, the whole hardcore community. We were part of it and never lost that love or that loyalty. So we were not just pleasantly surprised, we were very, very grateful. Very grateful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you guys absolutely did help.
It was crazy because at some of our biggest meathead, our most caveman mentality, in the era that we were thinking like rocks, was a lot of us got it. I saw a lot. I saw people. There was always going to be haters when people are doing something new. But I remember all our people like really grabbed onto it. It was like the perfect time for that different thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean the opposite of love is indifference, not hatred. So if you don't have haters, you're doing something wrong. So
yeah, for sure. So all right, so we go before that. Obviously, you're an old school guy. Your first, just touch and base fight, Jersey. You're born and bred Jersey.
No, I'm born in New York.
Oh,
Russ, Jersey. I'm New York.
yeah.
And,
I always thought you were you a Jersey guy.
it's interesting. You're not the first person to say that. It must be, I must have some kind of Bruce Springsteen kind of, some kind of Tom Bon Jovi energy.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. Yeah, no. I was actually born in Long Island.
Okay.
Did elementary and middle school in Long Island, and from high school on lived in Manhattan. There were little breaks here and there. There was a little bit of my youth spent in England, believe it or not.
Shit! All right.
Ages 6 and 7. There was from the late 90s to the early 2000s living in Los Angeles. I bounced around a lot, but no, I grew up, graduated high school, grew up in New York, in Manhattan on the Upper West Side. And I've come full circle and moved back to that neighborhood. But yeah, so I grew up in a neighborhood that was kind of like the north and very west of the whole music scene downtown. I started going to shows with, my older brother would take me to see like Patti Smith or, the Talking Heads or something underground. And like his friends would play me like, the first Ramones album and the first Clash album. And so I started really getting into just, all kinds of just subgenres of music and was always kind of, even though I loved a lot of mainstream stuff. And when I grew up, I was born and bred and cut my teeth on the same Zeppelin and Sabbath and everything as everyone else did. But I was also listening to Leonard Cohen and Bob Dylan and Joni Mitchell. And I was also listening to jazz, and I was also listening to classical music, and I was playing bluegrass and country music and like playing banjo when I was looking. So I was always immersing myself in a very, very broad scape of music. And when I started playing shows, which was, I went to high school from 79 to 83. I started playing and getting a band together around 10th or 11th grade. And in 11th grade, I was playing tons of shows. And this is like 1981, but in a kind of a psychobilly, rockabilly band. We were playing we'd play the Mud Club and the Peppermint Lounge and all those places, and I was also seeing kind of the beginnings of hardcore form,
Yeah.
and hardcore was in full swing by 80, 82, 81, 82. In 81, I went to my first hardcore show, which was the Bad Brains at Memphis, Kansas City, and that just
81. That's crazy.
and it was one of the very last shows at Max's, and it was also the Beastie Boys, I believe, played that show, but not the Beastie Boys.
The first version.
It was Mike Diamond, but it was like Cade on drums, and it was
the OG, the punk.
And that, and also in my high school, I remember listening to like the Young and the Useless 7-inch because Adam Horowitz went to my high school and he was giving them out, and like Dave Skilkin would come visit him at school, and so there was always hardcore in my periphery, even when I was doing this kind of rockabilly thing. And then I always, I just had this need to express myself more emphatically than I was in the band I was in at the time. And so just with some friends, I formed a little band. We called ourselves the Numbskulls. We didn't even play out for a while. We would just like get together in basements or wherever and like cover Misfits songs and write a few of our own. And that band morphed into True Blue, morphed into Underdog, and etc.
Yeah, because I know you played guitar, and obviously if you play guitar, you play bass. What did you start with that first band, singing or playing guitar?
Well, the very first band I was in, I was playing guitar, and I would sing 2 or 3 songs every set that we would do. I was writing all the songs, and I was writing the music and the lyrics. It was a group called the Bel Airs. It was basically like
sounds like a doo-wop. It sounds like a doo-wop band.
It sounds like a doo-wop band, and but we were more like Eddie Cochran and Gene Vincent meets the Cramps kind of thing.
Let me ask you this: where was hip hop, if there was hip hop? Because I have also a theory that you're involved with that includes me later on in life.
Yeah, I absolutely loved hip hop from the time that a kid in my middle school, Stephen Atkinson, came up to me and said, "Have you ever heard of Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five?" And played it from literally at the beginning, back in the days of like Kool Herc and all that. I was listening to hip hop, and then shortly thereafter, obviously Sugar Hill Gang and all of that. And when I was in high school, I would go to Friday nights at the Roxy and see like the Treacherous Three and the Mastodon Committee and all that. I was buying all of those profile 12 inches and Joy and Sugar Hill and listening to a ton of it. And in fact, I even had like a little side project at the time with a kid in my high school, a kid named David Burt, who was an incredible DJ. We never released anything, right? But we were trying to blend kind of heavy guitars with hip hop. And this is like 1981, 82.
Yeah.
Really 81. I think it kind of stopped by 82. But
that's great.
Always had great love for
because I say that because my concept of there's 4 guys, there's 4 faces on my Mount Rushmore of that the dudes that brought swag to hardcore, because I was never on that punk rock shit. Shout out to all the Mohawks and that. So you had, when I saw jerseys, football, basketball jerseys, a little bit more swaggy that wasn't gutter attitude, which I saw. My fuck you attitude was more that attitude, was more of a street attitude than the gutter attitude. You know what I mean? And there was Mackie, there was a you, there was a Mark Ryan, there was an Eddie Leeway.
Thank you.
And I took that, and me being a guy being like, I loved AF because AF's AF, and obviously Roger being Latin helped. Oh shit, there's a space for me. And I was a hardcore skin. I love the skin shit, but I also came from hip hop, and so I associated with a little bit of swag with everything. Even when I was a skin, I would have a DMs, pressed jeans, but a triple fat goose. It was like, it would come out. So I noticed who had what, and all right, so I was never a super Underdog fan. I loved the hits. I was like, you got to, like the one-on-ones. I was like, I got it. But is it fair to credit Underdog for the first hip hop break in the one song?
I mean, I
Say
don't
yes.
know.
Say yes. And you know why I say yes? Don't be humble, and you're a real music guy. And this is something that been in my head since I heard that shit. Since I was 15 years old.
I mean, the answer I could give is I wasn't aware. I'm sure somewhere in this wide ranging world of God knows how many hardcore
Yeah.
bands in how many countries. But yeah, I mean, during Say It to My Face, I would always do some kind of a
Yeah.
freestyle rhyme, and that started very early, and yeah, and that was definitely a nod to a genre I love very much. And I don't know if I was the only thing I know I was the first at in all of hardcore
Yeah.
is because, and I have no doubt about it, only because of just and this is later on. This is going to
Uh,
like when I was in Youth Today, like so 86 and 87. I was definitely the first person to rock an X Swatch, and I know that
oh shit! All right.
because
Oh.
I was living near the Swatch store in Soho. I was living on Thompson Street, and I saw I was in there, and I would go in there and I would talk to them sometimes just because they were in the neighborhood. They were just neighbors,
Yeah.
people in your neighborhood. And I saw this pamphlet or some piece of literature that had a picture of it. I was like, wow, what? I'll take one of those. And this is where anyone is. Obviously, it had nothing to do with straight edge then.
Yeah.
For me, it did, but it hadn't been released yet. So this is how I know the first. So they literally told me when it was being released, and the day it was released, it was on my wrist. Absolutely not a fucking soul.
There you go.
Yeah,
All right. So
that's the
that
only
was.
thing I can claim. That's the only thing.
I'm gonna claim the other one for you then, because that. All right, sure, in the garages and maybe whatever, but I want to claim that break as the first hip hop break that's recorded in New York hardcore history. God damn it! Right now, everybody.
I
But
appreciate it.
but you know what? Again, why I take that little piece, why that little piece was very important to me, because later on, writing style and whatever, I loved the old style hardcore and I loved metal, and I liked swag. That alone showed me I could do it and get away with it, and nobody would blink. It wouldn't be out of pocket. It's still, the OGs are doing it. I never wanted to make a rap hardcore band, but I like the elements of hip hop coming in, or a bounce,
Yeah,
kind of
same
thing.
here. Same here. It always felt to me that would be corny. That would be some
Yeah,
that was
exactly.
11 type shit or something. But yes, but yeah, it was just something. It was literally it started out as just something long before it was ever on stage. It was just a form of expression that would happen, just kind of impromptu, rehearsing, and sometimes it was to other songs,
Yeah.
or just a beat. But yeah, and that's incredible to hear that. I didn't even think that even resonated with anyone, right? So it's amazing to hear you say that.
No, that alone was like, okay, yo, that's a straight up, and at that time they're doing a hip hop beat. It wasn't like AF could not do that. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't that type of band. It had to be the right band, the right age with the right, time. And I was young and I caught that, and again, like I said, stuff like which ended up being jock gear, which ended up later being hip hop gear, like seeing team sportswear. I was like, oh shit, maybe not on the jock tip, but I started seeing it. Okay, yeah, there's caps, there's sneakers,
Yeah,
not just boots and mohawks.
My angle with that though was always a little bit different too, because what I would always rock was a Jack Lambert jersey. Even though I'm a Jets fan, I played football in high school. I played football.
I was gonna ask
from Pop Warner, and he was always my favorite player by far. Was always Jack Lambert. I played linebacker. I played like guard on offense, but there was something about him that he personified football for me. But he also personified just an intense kind of fury that I felt inside me all the time, and just the way he played the game was kind of really really resonated with me, and the way I like to express myself on stage. So I would always wear a Jack Lambert jersey, or I would wear my own 58. I wore the same number in high school. I would wear my high school.
You were a football jersey. That's what I was going to ask, because my youngest son plays now, and I know you played ball. How long did you play? You played in college or high school?
No. So I played from the time I was allowed to, which was 8 years old.
Yeah.
Through graduating high school, and then college, I was always doing. I actually ended up dropping out of college after I started signing little indie, record deals and stuff, and just touring all the time. So I just took an indefinite leave of absence. But no, I just left it at high school. Guys that I played with went on to play, a few of them Division I football and stuff.
Wow.
We had a great team. I went to a little school in Manhattan called McBurney, but we would recruit players. I mean, our quarterback was 6'5", could throw it, the ball
Yeah.
like 100 yards. And we had a fullback with like 34-inch thighs. He was built like Earl Campbell. And,
Yeah.
we had a real team, and we would just blow out any New York City team. So we played in a very difficult division in Long
Yeah.
Island, all away games, undefeated my junior and senior year. So we were real. And football, I was passionate about playing football, and
Yeah.
it was another outlet for my fuck you and my anger.
Yeah. No, for sure. Because I heard you play that for a long time, and now my son plays, and I get it. I get the football shit now. My son playing through it. All the way people used to talk about. I always wanted to play, but New York is hard. That's why I'm surprised that you got to play, because in the city it's hard to actually play.
It's very hard. We were very fortunate, and that was a window of time when I went to a school that had a great athletics program, and
That's great.
Very, very lucky.
And I got a question for you on that subject, because I'm interested in this for you playing, because my son started like you at 8 years old, like 8 young. You're a smart guy, right? How do you feel with all this talk about, with like Pee Wee leagues and early, because obviously
there really is a danger. There's a lot of danger.
Yes, of course, yeah.
Look, I told my kids, I have a son and a daughter. My daughter's much more of an artist, but my son's an athlete. He's 10 years old, but all he cares about is basketball. I let him try every sport, and I was like, whatever you want to do, I support. My wife was very, very concerned about him choosing football. He didn't in the end, so it's not an issue. But it's very, very real. I know.
Yeah.
Look, I saw a lot of terrible injuries happen when I was playing, and equipment has gotten better, but I still hear all the horror stories about concussions that have left kids with real problems, like real motor skills problems, cognitive problems, repeated concussions that they didn't even know they were getting until they saw a specialist. So it's real. It's very real. I do look. When I watch pro football, I'm like, this is such a pussy game now. They protect quarterbacks, like But as a father, I'm a little bit glad that if my kid was playing football, that they don't teach you. I was taught to hit people with my face mask in the numbers, literally, like put my face in someone's numbers and try to blow their spine out of their back.
I know, different era.
That's a recipe for concussion and a broken neck, and that's how I was taught to hit people.
I call it a good time. You call it what? I know, no, but you are totally right. And I know there's bad with that, but I was, because I know it's a big subject in the football world, and I see it also. But I also talk to some of these morons that go to hardcore shows. Oh, forget it. We're better off on the football field, You played it, so you played it to college, and you said you kind of chilled out because you started touring, right?
Yeah, so I played through high school, and then I put football away after my senior year in high school. Had a great run from age 8 through 17, and graduating, and then I really focused on music. I was there was nothing I wanted to do more, day and night than write.
So that's Underdog is in swing at that time, right? Is that Underdog is in swing, or what's it?
So I graduated in '83, and I was still doing the kind of like psychobilly thing. The roots of Underdog started because a guy I went to high school with who played football with me was a tailback, a guy named Scott Kleber. He and I started what became the Numbskull. So we were playing, but we didn't start playing for real till '84, till the following year, till '84. So I graduated '83. We start playing just like people's houses and high school gyms and VFW, whatever it is. Those hardcore shows. 84-ish. So, and that morphed into True Blue, morphed into Underdog.
Yeah, and then what was True Blue as far as members wise to Underdog?
So it became True Blue when Russ joined the band. So the Numbskulls we played lots of shows with Murphy's Law. We ended up on lots of shows. I was a huge Murphy's Law fan, huge AF fan too, and to me, like, Jimmy was the absolute ultimate frontman in hardcore.
Um,
He was the most charismatic. So it was like those were dream bills for me to play with Murphy's Law, and had such a great time playing shows with them. And one day Russ was like, there's going to be some personnel changes in Murphy's Law, and how solid is your bass player and Underdog? I was like, actually, he lives far away. I don't know how into it he is, but come on board and you be the bass player. And then from that moment, he's like, let's change the name, and we became True Blue very briefly. At the time when there was, I think shortly before there was a Madonna song with the same name.
yeah,
I mean,
get
that was
those
a year
royalties.
later or 2 years later or three, who knows? But yeah. So it, the chronology is that by the time we became Underdog and recorded and released a 7-inch, it's now 1985. So that's that
Yeah.
first Underdog 7-inch. But the roots of that started with a guy I went to high school with. I graduated high school in '83. My friend Scott and I create what the prototype for what would ultimately be Underdog.
And well, you know what was the thing that was cool about Underdog? It was kind of like you motherfuckers brought a little bit of California, and that might have been with Russ with the skateboarding. I know,
Well,
I know you skated. Everybody kind of
yeah,
did,
yeah,
but
we all did. But I mean, so I was writing the music, all on that 7-inch. Russ wrote the music for a couple of songs on the album, but all that early stuff, that music was, I was definitely listening to, in addition to, the New York stuff that I was always a fan of the Circle Jerks and Black Flag, and even bands like JFA and
yeah, yeah, that was
Gresham and even those like Oxnard band, like, so there was a lot of skate rock that I listened to, that certainly, I'm sure, influenced me. Everything you're enthusiastically like listening to and again and again has to have some influence on your writing, I would think.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. No, no, for sure, for sure. And you guys always had that because I remember being like, yo, that's like our skate, the East Coast.
mhm.
If you're gonna skate, you're gonna at an Underdog show, you're gonna see skateboards roll up, which you wouldn't always
Yeah,
see at every show.
that's how
Like
that's how Russ and I became friends. He was the only other person I would see on a skateboard. People think there was all these like skaters in the early days of New York hardcore. There were very few. Like I think Johnny Feedback from Kraut, I would occasionally see on a skateboard, but really the only person I saw who was also doing like whatever, ollieing up on curbs and doing little
yeah,
grinds was Russ.
yeah.
And
Shout out to Russ, the
it was
fucking savage.
yeah, legend. But
Yeah,
and we bonded. I think we bonded over that a lot because we would just see each other. We'd both be holding skateboards and we
yeah.
would just be talking. And then and with the Murphy's Law and Numbskull shows, it was inevitable.
And you had a stint with Youth of Today too, right?
Yeah. So I remember going to see someone asked me if I wanted to go to an AF show, like upstate. Maybe it was just in Yonkers, or maybe a little bit beyond in Westchester, or maybe Putnam County, not far, like not that far north of New York City. And the opening band was Youth of Today, and I remember recognizing Ray and Purcell because I had seen like I'd seen the Young Republicans, I had seen I had seen those guys, and knew their faces. But I remember thinking there was a real contrast because this is at the time when AF was like the Cause for Alarm, and there was a very distinct kind of metal vibe. And then this opening band, Youth of Today, and this was their very first show. By the way, I didn't realize I was at their very first show. For me, and it seems so funny to say this because it's only a couple of years after '82, but I was like, this is very 1982. I was like, this,
Yeah,
this feels like '82. This feels like when I would go see whatever
yeah,
SSD and Void and DYS and all those Minor Threat. I was like, this has that vibe, and I always did admire the whole straight edge movement, the way it was in DC, and even like the more radical comic book version in Boston.
yeah,
Only because for me, I wanted to be. I always, even when I was playing sports and I was around a lot of jocks, I wanted to be the opposite of these burnout,
Yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
meatheads. And
Yeah.
I, so I did like the idea of always being hyper aware and and just always operating on, firing on all cylinders. So I was always attracted to that straight edge thing. Anyway, I saw their very first show, immediately kind of hit it off with those guys. Not long after that, Purcell's looking for a place to live. I'm like, move into my apartment on Thompson Street, and he becomes my roommate. And shortly thereafter, he's like, you should do some shows with us. I wanted to do both. I wanted to be able to, to sing in Underdog and to play guitar in Youth of Today, just be around my friends in these different circles and stuff. And then, very understandably, I think for Russ that wasn't okay. And and then for the summer of '87, Carl Mosher was fronting Underdog, and I loved Carl. He was great. He was an incredible presence. For me, it felt strange that like someone else is singing these words I wrote, even though that happens all the time. Most people in most bands are singing songs of someone else. So I don't know why at the time it felt strange to me. But I was totally cool with it, and I and I went and played guitar on I recorded "Break Down the Walls" with Youth of Today. Drew and I both did.
And if you're gonna be on any Youth of Today record, that's the record to be on.
Yeah, well, at the time it was only a 7-inch before that. Can't Close My Eyes, which a lot of people don't know. I'm in the cover photo, but in a lot of versions where it's been like Xerox a million times, I fade to black. But in the clear version, of that photo,
that's you.
You can see me. There's two guys you can see kind of singing along with Ray, and I'm one of them. But yeah, so I record Break Down the Walls. I do a bunch of shows with them, and then I do a whole summer tour with them, and then went back to Underdog.
And let me ask you this: so now, even though you're the anti-meathead, you're a football player. I know football player mentality. Now we got you in a straight edge band, right? But you got that football thing in you.
Well, I've always had that. I've always had an intense, fury in me, and that, so I needed that outlet, whether it was football or it was even even when I was doing the rock, it was a very dark, macabre aspect to it. It was very horror show, very there was a real evil,
dark side,
real dark side. And then, with the bands I was in, that I needed that heavy music and that aggression, but I've also always needed a very broad range of textures and sounds and dynamics. I've always, for me, if I'm creating music, I want dynamics. For me, the heavy parts are more powerful if they're coming from something else. And
for sure,
if it's just relentless, I mean, that's great. And even a lot of the bands that I love, it was all one thing. I was the most obsessed Ramones fan, and every Ramones show was the same thing, and it was one level, one color, one texture, and it was a beautiful thing. For me, my self-expression, I needed those dynamics, so I always needed a big, broad palette of sounds and textures, but I always had that fury, and I always needed that heavy thing.
So, because my question is so obviously, this is why I said that, because so you got this, most hardcore people, we got this hidden anger that lives in a room in our bodies.
Yeah.
So now you're in this straight edge band, right? But obviously, playing the sport you play, there's a different mentality than the average civilian. You know what I mean? It's like you were part of being in the military is just a different type of mindset. Now, I know you must have encountered the 101 meathead. Hey, you fucking straight edge pussies, blah, blah, blah.
All the time.
And how much fun did you have fucking people up? Because I know you fuck people up. That's what I basically wanted to say. Because I know the Richie Underdog stories. So
it's funny. I could say honestly, almost every real fight that I really got down and really scrapped was born more out of racism, which is a lot harder for me to tolerate.
Okay. Gotcha.
So things like seeing people Sieg Heiling in the crowd, or being at being at Fenders and seeing skinheads with SS tattoos on their neck and doing this shit. I've never had any patience for that. Listen, I don't, I'm trying to teach my kids to be good
Me
people.
too.
I've definitely, yes, I've had some skirmishes in my life. Most of them had to do with that or defending my friends. There was
Yeah,
definitely, and it was never really the straight edge thing. A lot of the people who would say that, they back down. They almost all, in fact, they all back down. And
yeah,
one of the most drastic cases where it was, well, there were a couple. The one time when it really came to a fight, it was just I'm not tooting my horn here. It was a one punch fight, but I think the guy was drunk or something. It was
yeah.
some skinhead who thought he was a legend in Boston. Youth of Today opening for 7 seconds. I just see this big fucking palooka fucking skinhead hitting little kids, like
Yeah,
little like prepubescent pubescent kid, like,
yeah.
and I just squared
Yeah.
off with him, and it was just one and done. He was down, and then a bunch of kids like, you beat up Adam the Skin. Like, no one's ever fucked him up. I was like, it wasn't. He just didn't. He didn't put his guard up. But years later, that guy who he had become a biker or something, he came up to me and he shook my hand. He's like, I just want to tell you, I was Adam the Skin or whatever, and you were in the right. And it was actually
Yeah,
it was a pretty cool moment. And this was
yeah, yeah,
and I didn't even recognize he was a long haired biker at that point. But most of that was the one guy who squared off on me. But with the straight edge thing and the fuck you straight edge pussies, they all back down.
yeah,
Youth of Today played a show in Arizona. These guys were making a lot of noise, and they were all jacked and Rita and fucking
yeah,
and calling me out and because I just didn't take shit, and I would engage. So I basically was like, all right. After the show, we even made a place to meet up. We roll up, and I'm doing push-ups and bar dips and fucking
yeah, right, yeah.
getting ready, and they never showed up. I mean, so that was very typical, and
Yeah,
really those people would always stand down, honestly. And
yeah,
whereas a lot of times when I lost it because of racism and people seek hiling or saying things to Chuck Treese or whatever it
yeah,
was, that was me just seeing red, and that was
yeah. Oh, hell yeah.
so I wouldn't know how it would go. That wasn't squaring off. That was going at someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because I know, especially back then, just being not even straight as just being a metalhead, being a punk rocker, you were called everything under the fucking,
Oh,
umbrella.
absolutely. And also a lot of times, with Russ, people fucking with Russ, and
That's a wrong move too.
yeah, and that's
You'll
and he's absolutely holds his own. But there were many times when I would dive
yeah,
into that because it was where we'd be in the middle of fucking Iowa or somewhere.
yeah,
All of a sudden, I see my boy and he's outnumbered, and I'm trying to sell T-shirts. I'm like, fuck the T-shirt.
yeah, exactly, yeah. And then, all right, now you're playing. Where does the fucking so you're always doing some side music? I know you're always jamming, like you said. You always have an acoustic guitar next to you.
Always.
Where does the Into Another Baby get where does that thing get born?
So
Like,
I would say the conception, the moment that the sperm and the ovum meet,
basically, yeah, that.
is probably Drew and I were always in touch. He was like my little brother, and in fact, I mean, he literally he dated my sister for a while. He was like my little brother, and from the time I met Drew when he was in crippled youth, and he was just this little kid, I just always felt like a big brother to him, and we were fast friends, and we were close friends. We became brothers, and at the time that late 80s, that sort of Underdog is kind of winding down and everyone's feeling a little disgruntled, and hardcore was in a really weird place for me and for him. And not saying anything bad about hardcore, because we never lost our love for hardcore. But for me, he and I both felt creatively stifled, and we would commiserate. We would literally, I would call him. I'd be like, hey, I'm on tour. I'm in San Francisco. And he'd be like, yeah, I'm here or whatever. And we would just commiserate about the fact that we felt, for us, like a lot of the magic wasn't there anymore, and we were just dying to do something unsafe, like creatively. That's we would always talk about that. Like this just feels safe. This feels repetitious. I feel like I'm in fucking Sha Na Na right now playing
Yeah.
like um and so as soon as kind of I think it's like 89 at this point, and he and I both get back from tours and immediately like just start actually became roommates. I'm like at that time I was living in the West Village on like 7th Avenue and like 14th Street. I'm like, you know, come live here and we just start writing music. And that Into Another was two people at first, and it was basically me writing chord progressions and riffs and words, and Drew laying down beats, and that was, you know, the zygote. And
The-
it grew in stages because, you know, suddenly I realized, like, wow, I've written like 15 or 18 songs here. I've got these songs, but we don't have any people. And a woman who now has sadly left the planet years ago, Catherine Ludwig, who was the editor of Metal Maniacs. I would always see her downtown when I was doing like the door at the pyramid or whatever. I would always see her, and we'd always chat. She knew a lot about music, and we were good friends. And she's like, you know, my boyfriend is a great guitar player. You should meet him. And I'm thinking like, yeah, right. You know,
yeah.
a great guitar player. So we meet. Drew and I invite Peter Moses to come into the studio, and of course, this guy comes in with the Farrah Fawcett hair and an acid wash, and we're like, what's going to happen here? And you know,
Yeah.
for me, and this also was a real learning moment for me, because I realized that I had preconceptions about people that were unfair, because I thought, you know what, this guy's he's gonna play some fucking, you know, some noodly fast, incredibly complex shit, but it's going to be what every guy working on 48 Street plays. But so I deliberately was like, you know what, let's play like some blues in fucking E, and just some 1-4-5 blues, and just, you know, just see, because for me a musician can improvise, and can make phrases and can talk with their instrument.
Yeah.
And he immediately, the minute he started playing, and I realized how real and how musical he was and how expressive he was, Drew and I just looked at each other and our jaws dropped. They just dropped. And then I started showing him songs that we were working on. And first, you know, his first playing them back to us, he's making them a million times better. He's augmenting things, and he's making things sound like there's other guitar players in the room. And we're just like, fuck, man, I don't, Farrah Fawcett hair and all, you are in. We're all in with you. You're in, you know. And then he was like, shortly thereafter, he was like, hey, you know, Tony from Whiplash, the bass player, is looking a little different. And he came in, and he was just a fucking teddy bear. We just, just loved Tony from the minute he walked in the room.
What a killer too. Oh my God.
Yeah. He was fucking unreal. I mean, and so then it started becoming this really collaborative writing thing. So a lot of like the early songs like Underdog and While I Die and all that stuff, like I wrote those songs, but then
that's what I was going to ask. Who wrote those songs?
So
because
those very early ones. Well, even on that album, there's a lot of collaborative stuff. I mean, so like Underlord was a song that I had just written before there were other people, and you know, and While I Die and a few of the others, but things like Powered, like Pete wrote that riff, and then
gotcha.
And then it literally became just thoroughly collaborative, and really throughout the body of our work, it was always someone would bring in a riff. Very, very often it was Tony bringing in a riff, a bass riff, and us building on that. I would always write the lyrics only because for me, I have very weird ways of phrasing things, and just even rhythmically, and so it's just, if I'm singing and fronting a band, it's just easier for me to sing my melodies and my lyrics. They're so fucking weird, and I just
you can live them. You can live it easier on stage. You can live it and not fucking have.
Yeah. So that and for me, that band Into Another, as far as living it on stage, that was the most cathartic and that's like the most vulnerable I've ever made myself lyrically. It's the most honest expression I've ever done musically, lyrically. So that was a real catharsis every night.
And as a fan, I dare say this: you guys definitely went for it. We looked at each other. We said, "These motherfuckers are going for it." Like, there's no holding back. They want to do what they want to do, because it was new for us also. Like, oh, the OGs from this doing some real side stuff, you know. again, you could tell it was more grown up, and it was still in the vein of being gritty and the gritty clubs kind of, and the
Yeah.
attitude, obviously, but it was some new shit that somehow we also, it connected with us. We were like, yo, there's something about this shit we like.
That's
It makes sense. And what I loved a lot about it, Sabbath is my favorite band ever. And
mhm.
I hear so much Sabbath. And what I love also, again, we probably seen your first 15 shows everywhere you motherfuckers played.
Amazing.
You sound the same and like the record everywhere you guys played. The fucking band was ridiculous.
Thank you. That's incredible. You say, and again, we were very much aware of you guys and very grateful.
Oh,
But yeah, there was a lot of Sabbath, a lot.
oh,
I mean,
my
that's
shit. You
always
guys right now are on my gym playlist. Every day I hear your mouth. But even before we were talking, I got you on the playlist. But because that specifically, I like a lot of the later stuff. But that and the Creepy EP at that time,
yeah.
those two records, and on tour, Freddie blasted. We would just blast it. That would be on rotate. All the Stigma would go crazy. All right with that. All right, he can go right. Like put
Oh, yeah.
Johnny Cash
He,
on.
he gave me shit a few times. Yeah, it's funny too because like I'd be on tour listening to Johnny Cash and everything else from Simon and Garfunkel to fucking
Yep.
George Jones and fucking you know. So yeah, that's amazing to hear though, because also I saw a lot of you guys and when Madball came along, I was like, this is fucking huge. Like this is, I can't believe the walls are even containing these people in this crowd. It's like one giant organism trying to smash the building. Like when this band plays, so no, it's always incredible to hear like your peers or anything say that something created.
Oh yeah, no, it was great to this. Again, but we blast that shit recently. We were blasting it on the road. We were a lot of play, and again, musically, the band was just so ridiculous. And what I loved again, it opened up, you know, I don't know, and where in the time frame. I remember you guys before. It ain't no competition thing, but you guys doing it before a quicksand thing, and then now I remember seeing an Into Another, and then I remember seeing whatever the frame, a quicksand, guys doing the Angry Head, Petey Hines were Handsome. I remember a lot of other band. What to me, I was like, yo, the doors are open now. Okay, yo.
Yeah, people were calling it post-hardcore, but there was no one genre. I mean, just look
Yeah.
at how different we were from, Quicksand were phenomenal, and they were much more in that
Totally
kind
different.
of alt kind of, whatever Pixies kind of
Yeah.
amazing shit. We were just some weird, bizarre cocktail of shit that people either loved or fucking hated, which
Yeah.
I always thrived on that, always loved it. And
Yeah.
all of those so-called post-hardcore bands were completely wildly different from one another.
Agreed.
Which is great. Which is
no, that's why I agree. They would call it post, I think, just because you had a bunch of old hardcore guys that were in hardcore bands, and they had to be like, this is their after. Exactly. Yeah, but it was
label.
Yeah, but I remember seeing that. Now you put out, so you got this thing, the first recording, the first album. Do you go out like, oh, we got some songs, or you're like, okay, let's shop a label? How was like, did it come up like a kind of a slow burn starting off like?
Well, being on Rev was almost a foregone conclusion, only because Jordan and I were such good friends, and I was like, I'm doing this really weird thing. I don't think it fits on Rev.
Yeah,
and he's like, I want to put it out, and just because we were friends, and I think he was very interested in kind of broadening the kind of spectrum.
Oh yeah,
we're releasing. So the label thing was with Rev, that happened right away. But yeah, from the moment we had a set that we could play out, we were like, let's get a van. I literally bought a used fucking van, and we got like Gus to roadie on our first little outing, and we went down south and we broke down. We got eaten by red ants and all kind. It was all that beautiful. All that beautiful shit, and it was just like touring in a hardcore band again. And and also very early on, we went out to Europe very early. Really, for part of it, we were like trading back and forth, headlining with a band called Maelstrom from Boston. So like not even on any tour or anything. And
I remember them.
And then, and we kept going back to Europe as often as we could. We made, great friends there, and we were MAD were booking us, but we got going very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Even when we were doing it on a fucking shoestring, we were just like, let's just get a van, let's just go and play shows up and down the East Coast. Let's drive to California, let's drive to Canada, let's drive to Mexico City, whatever we could do, and we would just get out there and play, even if it was just like breaking even, we would just do it just to do it.
You got those first batch of songs. Are you saying, yo, we got some shit here, or you're like, yo, we got some cool songs we like?
No, so it was always, first of all, it was a very intense time for me emotionally, and for me it was just like, I've made this little outlet for like my fucking insanity, that I can get on stage and have this catharsis every night. I never ever thought it would be. I never thought about how viable it would be or how appealing it would be to anybody, any scene or genre or anything. We started getting attention from labels because there was like this feeding frenzy that went on.
Oh yeah.
Let's find the next thing. Grunge happened, so let's go.
Yeah.
We hear there are all these bands in New York that are drawing these big crowds, and people are going crazy. So we'd play wherever, Wetlands or wherever the fuck we were playing, and there'd always be label people, always, and they'd always come up and talk to us. And then it started this little, like, I'm sure, like exactly what happened with the other bands with Quicksand.
Yeah.
And we stupidly picked Hollywood Records because they offered the most perks and this and that, and you can all get new guitar or whatever the fuck. and big checks and but so we got caught up in that same feeding frenzy of labels, but yeah, early on it was just all Revelation, and it was all just Jordan was my boy, and we just did it with them. But yeah, we were part of that whole weird post-hardcore.
And the momentum you got was obviously by the creepy EP. That was on what? That was still on that, right?
That's
you guys
Rev.
didn't.
That was Rev. So creepy EP we actually recorded while like kind of mid-tour. We wrote it during sound checks and stuff, and then we were like, let's just get these other songs out. These are cool. So we laid down basic tracks in one studio, or we laid down all the instrumental tracks in one studio. And then when we got back, I did the vocals in just some shitty free studio time in New York. And so that was
great, man.
That was just to do something in the interim before we did another LP. And then and then even the next LP, Ignore Us, was also Revelation.
Oh, that was Revelation?
Yeah, that was Revelation. It was only Seamless was on Hollywood Records. And then we went we actually went and recorded another LP for Hollywood, but we never got to mix it. We never got to even finish doing guitar overdubs or anything. So there's an unfinished album, even though it's complete in that all the lyrics are there and all the basic tracks are there, but it never got mixed, and we never finished. We never did like the overdub guitars or anything. And that was released as a bootleg. People just released it. I don't know how they got their hands on it, but we were already in such a big fight with our label, who had fucked us up in so many ways I can't even begin to tell you, that we actually we sued our label, and we ended up getting a settlement. They deleted us from their catalog. That record never saw the light of day except as a bootleg. So it's this weird unmixed basic tracks thing that people called it various things. I had a couple of working titles for it. One was Soul Control, one was Horse Platitudes, but it never got a title. It never got finished, which is really unfortunate. It was another real departure for us. It was a very gloomy, very sad album. And it had things, even though there was no, there was no sampling or looping. It had the influences of some electronic music in the way that Drew was playing these beats that sounded almost drum and bass, and very repetitive, like 16th note bass lines and stuff. And it almost had this kind of British drum and bass influence in the music. But yeah, so the only release on a major is Seamless.
And was that did you do have any Big Willie producer before that, or you guys just did it on the earlier stuff?
The earlier stuff, it was us and friends. I mean, we had like
Yeah,
you know, my friend Todd, who played drums for this like underground New York band. He like co-produced
got you,
Ignore Us with us, and so no, we never got paired with a real producer
got you.
until Seamless, and we did Seamless on Hollywood, and then there was also a very limited EP, a couple of EPs that had tracks that were recorded along with the album tracks, but didn't make the album like sequence.
And all right, so what was was the Ignorance record the first bigger budget record?
No, because it was a Rev record, so it wasn't a big budget. It was a
Oh,
it was
yeah, yeah, it
yeah.
was. So it was just but was because it seemed well the whole layout seemed more. They did a good job of
Oh yeah,
disguising it.
yeah. So I think that, well, also yeah. So that one I whatever, I got myself like a fancy Macintosh computer and a fucking scanner, and we got like my friend who was a club kid, Wallpaper, let me use his paintings and his illustrations for Ignore Us. So it seems more high production value, but they were all made on very small budgets. I mean,
Wow.
especially the the first album, that was just us at Dawn Fury with like
Yeah.
the tiniest, but making an album with like a fucking 7-inch budget, So
Yeah, and look, and I love Don Fury. Obviously, that's the origin sounds of early hardcore.
yeah,
But let me tell you, I don't know how the fuck you made that spot sound like that because I love Don Fury for what it is, and I know what it is. It belongs
yeah.
where it was.
I,
The stuff the more complex stuff, it might not be the best bed to lay on, is what I'm saying.
yeah, I think really the only thing we did different was we just put some room mics in because we were playing so fucking loud that we
Mm,
just wanted to pick up some of the weird ambient sounds that were happening every room has weird reflections and dampening,
yeah.
weird anomalies, and we just wanted to capture the weirdness of the room, so we just
So when you first went into another, you got your first taste of obviously people labels coming at you and people throwing, the whole buzz thing. How did that feel at first? Could you did they ever get to you? Like, did you ever fall into the whole? Because it's easy to fall into, like, for a minute, like lose
yeah.
yourself. Because again,
So
you were younger, way younger. When you're
yeah,
younger,
yeah. So no, so I, even though I always had that kind of swag on stage, I was never someone who was like feeling himself and thought he was
yeah,
a
yeah,
star or a future star or anything. So no,
yeah,
I always was a fucking, I always expected disappointment, and I was always
yeah,
just like a fucking weird, depressed, angry, fucked up guy. So no, I was never feeling myself like that. And actually, the first person who approached us who I didn't think was a bullshit artist was someone who kind of came out of the like kind of emo scene, which was this guy
uh-huh.
David Walter, great guy, and he, everyone else I was talking to was just kind of a big label, kind of, you could
Bullshit.
just smell the bullshit on them, and just they
Yeah,
were like fucking politicians, and
yeah, no soul. They got no soul to
no
them. You could
soul.
tell.
This was the
Yeah,
first like young kid, and it was the fucking 90s. He had the big oversized fucking jeans, but he looked like he was 12, and I was just like, okay, let's talk to this guy. And
yeah.
he got hired by Hollywood Records, and we ended up going with them. So it felt weird to me. The one thing it never felt like to me, and everyone used to throw around the term selling out, and
Yeah.
look for me, if I think about the people who influenced me the most, whether it was the Ramones on Sire Records, or the fucking the Pistols on fucking EMI and then Warner Brothers, or pick anyone, or the fucking Whalers on Island, or everyone signed to a fucking label. No one was the only people who were doing this not for profit shit. Because all these other labels, it's not like Revelation was a not for profit organization. Did like Crass and Rudimentary Peni like say like steal this album and maybe not make any money? I'm sure they did, but even look, I love that Ian built up Discord, and he never had to be on a major label because he had this incredibly profitable company called Discord that he was making albums on, and That's
I
great.
wish I had that shit.
He got his message out there. You know what I mean? And so yeah, the one thing I never ever felt like was a sellout. To me, it was such a silly thing. There were so many things to be upset
Yeah.
about in the world, from from war to poverty to graft and
Yeah.
corruption and racism and a million other things. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah,
fuck it.
because I asked that because obviously that's a question people think about, but we're people that had those experiences. It's easier to, I like asking people that I know had those encounters, not what you think you would say. Of course, we all say, yeah, we'll say fuck you to $20 million because I love CBGBs and I want to play in a garage my whole life. It's easy to say to you, they got millions of dollars in your face. What I was saying, because with we have another band with the Hazen Street shit with Toby and everybody. And at one point, so at one point we were on a major label. And one thing I'm very proud of us that we never fell for the bullshit, but we've been in those situations where they're telling us, hey, next year at this time next year, and I'm quoting word for word, I won't say who, but word for word, next year at this time, you guys are going to be buying houses. And I remember looking at my boy Dave Kennedy. Me and Dave, that's my brother. Shout out to Dave Kennedy. We look at each other like, and I go, God hoping. And they go, nah. Like, did you understand? Your life as you know it is changed.
Yeah.
And I know Stigma where he's living at. They got offered the world. Everybody got offered the world 100 times. And ain't till you got the world, you got it. We all know that,
We also know what a bullshit game the fucking look when artists are getting 12 to 14 points after everything is recouped, including all the times your fucking A&R guy got a back rub at the fucking Berkeley Square Hotel in London. It's a fucking shell game. The label's getting 88 points or 86 points, and they start taking money off the top the minute sales start, and the artist doesn't get paid till everything is recouped. It's bullshit. Artists, it's the most unethical contract structure there is, which is, to the credit of a lot of indie labels. Not all of them, but a lot of them will do true profit sharing 50-50 deals. Everyone shares the costs and the profits, which is the way it should be. It's the way a lot of indie films are. But I got handed the same bullshit line. Are you picking out your Bentley?
Exactly.
The rough mixes and
exactly. And what was my question? Because again, the first, let's stay out of the main whatever amount of time into another had a solid straight run. Like that first half, we knew everything that was going on. Then as you went on, touring more, we were touring more. This world just kind of fake. What was I don't want to say like the proudest, but what was the something big Willie that you got to do into another? Because like with Madball, we got to do like, wow, I got to play a show with Sabbath, a festival. We got to do a festival with Judas Priest and Los Lobos. To me, I'm like, because the little cool stripes under your belt kind of shit.
So definitely was the festivals, like whatever with like Ted Nugent or whatever the fuck. But also we got to do a really fun tour. But we got to do an arena tour with the Ramones and White Zombie, which was cool.
Wow.
It was all, there was no East Coast, like Midwest and stuff. Yeah, and that was Big Willie stuff. But look, I like the up close and sweaty shit. I think we all. It's great to play those shows. When like the people in the front row, you can't even touch their hands because there's fucking security in the barricade. I mean, I'll tell you what. At the end of the day, that's great to look out and see a ton of people, but at the end of the day, for me, it's like the only thing better about those shows was the monitors were better. Other than that, I like getting kicked in the face with fucking steel toes and like
I know you gotta feel it.
Fighting me for the mic and just that intimate where there's no separation. It's just you and the people who are present there, and it's just it's for me that's much more of a catharsis and much more powerful. But so we got really fucked with because we recorded this album for Hollywood Records for a major label. They fucked up everything to the point where we had a song that actually started to chart a little bit on college and alternative radio, and but our album still wasn't available, and they
Worse.
never. We were like, we have to make a video for this song. We have to make a video. They didn't give us the clear, the green light and the money to make a video till long after it had peaked at radio, and it was done. It was just done. We didn't even like. It was like pointless to even submit it. And then we go everywhere we would play on that tour with the Ramones and White Zombie. Kids would say, "You guys are amazing. How do we get your CD?" We're like, "Is it not
the worst."
We're like, "No, we've been to Sam
That's-
Goody, we've been this place, we've been that. It's not available." And our label was like, "Yeah, we're in between distributors." Then we go to Europe, where like it's a different distributor. It's Polydor, and it's like a comedy of errors. Our album, as far as the jewel box with our artwork, is out, and the disc inside is screened with Into Another and the songs, but the music on the disc is some fucking trance band from like Manchester.
Oh my God!
And literally wasn't even our music. It was. So that's what it resulted in a lawsuit after that.
Jesus.
And we were on a label that was owned by Disney, so suing them is just a fucking lost cause.
Good luck, yeah.
That took years off my life, and then that really, that's where we just started to. This is like '97. We're in London making a record while we're suing the label that's supposed to release this record that they know.
Oh my God, that's horrible.
Yeah, it all went down in flames. It all went down.
Yeah, and oh yeah, that's right. And that was when you guys, whatever. I don't even say to break up. It just kind of fade out a little bit, like.
That's it. It was just slowly, disband. It was like slowly over time, just kind of.
Yeah, it melts.
It wasn't a dramatic implosion and passionate fight or anything. It was.
Yeah.
And we were literally paralyzed because Drew and I were, while we were suing the record label and in litigation, we weren't allowed to do anything else.
Oh my! They had you guys big time.
We took a very tiny little settlement, and for 2 years I wasn't allowed to do anything. The first thing I did after those 2 years was sing like backup vocals on my friend's album. He had a band called Dead Z on the West Coast, and that was the first thing I did. It was just singing harmonies and like And even though I was constantly writing, I really kind of lost my taste for that whole fucking. Business.
Yeah, that shit will do it to you, man. It really will, because it's basically like you have a child, and a record company's kind of like supposed to be like the ultimate boarding school that you're hoping it's gonna build this ultimate person.
Maximize your child, it's gonna.
And then I guess at a point you sign some shit and that they got them thrown out, neglecting your kid or whatever, and you can't do nothing about it. And it's like, and you chose it, but it was a facade. That's why I asked, because the smoke screens could get people, and I get it, especially being younger, and getting those opportunities in your early 20s, mid 20s. Oh, they're different. You're hot, you're excited, you're like, I'll take up whatever, let's go.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So I know, and now. You got a guitar in the house. There's music on tape. There has to be something getting recorded out of you.
There's always music. I mean, it's rare that anything gets recorded. I mean, but yeah, I'm constantly writing. I mean, we did do like an EP Into Another, very quick kind of, literally recorded it live in a room. EP, just 5 songs back in 2015, I think it was. And we talk about maybe recording some more. But yeah, I mean. Yeah, look, I got a mortgage and I've got 2 kids and I've got a day job where I still get to be creative, but I never stop playing music. I play music every day. There's a guitar. There's my daughter's little piano. There's like, I make music in some way every day. I mean, even today I was like playing Elvis songs on my fucking guitar.
Yeah.
But like I'm making in some form or another, music comes out of me every single day, 360.
Yeah. You got to. That has to be something to come out. You know what? I think you might be my new recruitment for my band. So I'm starting a group, right, of all retired and semi-retired musicians called the Wedding Thrashers. We're just gonna play a heavy metal covers at weddings. And whenever we're not on tour, yo, who we got? Yo, call Richie. We need a singer. Where's Stigma? He's on tour. All right, let's go. So we got a couple people on deck already for the Wedding
I
Thrashers.
love it. We gotta do those, but we gotta do those wedding songs, man. We got
Of course, the chicken dance, all that shit. We
All
got to
that-
do all of it.
all that
And
shit.
fuck it up. Is there anything new you're listening to now? Out of it's hard to say. I'm engulfed in the new shit because I cover a lot of the new music. But is there anything that stuck out to you?
So I'm embarrassed to say I don't listen to a lot of new music. When I hear it and I like it, and occasionally I'll get invited out to a club. I'm so fucking senile, I'll forget what it was, but I like.
Yeah. You're like,
I know there's definitely an exciting undercurrent of new music happening these days. I mean, there are a couple of punk bands I've heard that are decent, but to be honest, most of what I listen to, I play music more than I listen to, and when I do listen to it, I listen to older stuff. I actually listen to a lot of shit that people wouldn't believe I listen to. I listen to a lot of classical music because it helps inform a lot of things that I play that don't sound even remotely classical. But
but you guys had into another head. I call it Shire music. There's the ding ding ding. You know what I'm talking about? The Shire music. First record. Right away, I expected to fucking see, Willow. Shire music. You got that. You got Churning Butter.
Some Tolkien.
Exactly. So I get that part. It lingers in you, the Shire
It's
music.
funny, because actually there's that one song, and actually Peter wrote that music there's a song we did for Lack of a Better World, which was a classical guitar thing and just this melody I sang over it. But it does have the feeling of, it's funny you say Shire, because what predates Baroque music, which is the first form of classical music, is that kind of early music, and that kind of and it kind of has that vibe. It kind of has that court of like Tudors, Henry
Court jester. On the first record, you got the one track. I expected somebody to do a cartwheel, churning butter, a midget, Willow walk by, all that shit. Shout out to my brother Frankie. Me and him used to blast your shit, and to this day, he'll text me like lyrics or some shit, and I'm like, but we always say the ding 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 ding. I used to read all the Shire part, the Shire fucking and fucking no, it's great. But the reason why I say that, because I to this day I see a lot of your energy, if it's not directly, and they may know it or not, but I associate it with it. Like, there's bands, shout out to Turnstile, shout out to my boy E-Love, E-Town Concrete, but to me, there's no
Turnstile is huge, but also that to me doesn't feel like new. But Turnstile are gigantic, though. I mean, like every time I see anything with Turnstile, there's 200,000 people fucking mocking. So for me, that feels very established, like something that's huge and established. There's also a fucking West Coast band that's not quite as big, that I know have played on the same bills as this is how fucking senile I am. But I heard them recently. I was actually fucking blown away.
There's a lot of great bands now, even more on that punk tip, the old school. Look, this is why I love the energy. Again, I was never a punk side of the hardcore. I love the punk. That's why with AF, I liked when in the Cro-Mags, when they started. I was never super metal. I loved the tones, but I never liked the whole aesthetics of metal. And so I like that middle thing. But Turnstile, like, do they sound like Underdog? No, but there's an energy that I feel, if the swag from a guy like you, there definitely wouldn't be. Shout out to my brother Anthony, if he knows it or not. When I see him play, I go, this is, and not even sonically, energy wise, I go, this is Underdog 2023 or 20, whatever the year was, like Jersey. He has the swag. He had that. It was like, obviously they were more on the hip hop thing than you got, but it's that where it's urban, but it ain't just trying to be rap mix. It's just influence. You could tell there's an influence in there, and it's a youthful energy, but like not little kid. It's almost like that older part of teenage when you're becoming a young man. You get a little bit more grown up, but it's still. I don't know. When I see that, I see it, and I was like, that comes. And what I love about it, that opens up the music where it doesn't have to just be Meathead. If you talk to the 16-year-old Hoya, I wanted all Meathead. It had to be Cro-Mags, Cro-Mags, AF, Murphy's Law, Leeway, okay, everything else could be whatever. But I thank God for all those bands and the internet is the fucking quicksands to be like, I could do it because look at the guys who wrote the book. They laid the first bricks and now they're building another house over there. How about that?
I love it. I love seeing that. I'll tell you what, for me, and this is something that's right in your world, for me, it was something so amazing about going from seeing Roger bring little Freddie on stage as a tiny little kid to seeing then Freddie become this larger than life front man and move a whole room and everything. That to me was so powerful to just see that journey happen and unfold, and that kind of passing of the torch and the passing of the generations. And it's really incredible to see what it turns into each generation in each year. And I'm noticing now, I mean, again, I'm not that up on a lot of new music, but I have noticed that there are so many of these like punk clubs now in the city, and not just in Manhattan, in Brooklyn and elsewhere, and all throughout the country, with these rabid fan bases too. And it's not just the giant bands like Turnstile playing. Festivals.
Agreed.
It's bands playing little rooms in Brooklyn that are just blowing the doors off, and they have these incredible followings.
I can honestly say this right now. If you're gonna be a guy who was into the scene and maybe not into the music because the attitude changed, maybe the sound changed a little bit or whatever, now is the time to check out these bands because it's new energy with the sounds and flavors that we all came up with, or even the generation before me. Like the new bands, these kids are in their early 20s and they sound like old school punk bands with New York swag. They're not trying to sound like a crossover metal band, which I love, but how hardcore was going. They're going back to the punk roots, but with that young energy.
Exactly. But there's still, and look, let's face it, it's like cyclical because punk borrowed a lot from metal. It always did.
Yeah.
I remember listening to Noise the Show, even when I was a fucking rockabilly kid. I was listening to the first hardcore music that started to exist on Noise the Show with Tim Summers. He would play Motorhead along with all the hardcore shit. And guess what? You listen to like Filthy Phil play drums, and you listen to Earl play drums, and it's not that different. It's the fucking same energy. It's the same shit. Motorhead to me was a fucking hardcore band.
Absolutely.
I to your point, I never liked the aesthetics of metal. I never got into the poodle hair metal, but I was Sabbath all day. I was early Judas Priest all day. I still listen to Sad Wings of Destiny, constantly. I still listen to fucking Volume 4 and Sabbath and the first Sabbath album and fucking.
That's my Bible, I
listen to all of that still to this day. And it still informs a lot of what I do, even if what I'm doing is on an acoustic guitar. I'm still throwing in like a flatted fifth or some evil.
Hell yeah. No, it's a must. You can't get rid of that shit. When people that's what I tell people. I say, look, you don't got to go to every show. You don't got to be stage diving. When this shit really lived in you, if it really lived in you, it always lives in you, no matter where the fuck you go. You know what I mean? Yeah. I go. So I was like, but listen, I'm glad that I'm really glad I got to get up with you. Next time, I don't give a fuck if I got Wi-Fi. No, nothing. I make shit happen, but on the real, you're somebody I had on my list long time ago that I thought maybe I probably would never catch. So I was glad to see those eyes open up in the dark cave. I said, there we go.
In the cave, man.
But you already know, but on the real, I'm glad I got to catch up with you. It's been a while. I think the last time we really physically talked was in Okinawa, maybe.
Yeah. Which is 2007 or something
crazy? Insane. But I remember I've been going off that combo. I was like, yeah, maybe I'll get up. I hope I get them because I know not everybody also does the podcast thing or whatever. But I was like, I saw your eyes, but I said, let me get at him. I gotta get at him. And when you
Yeah.
were like, yo, let me work it, I said, that's enough. I'll make it happen no matter what.
No, I appreciate it, Hoya. It's actually great to connect with you again.
Absolutely.
Hopefully it better not be another 15 years before
Exactly. That's what exactly. I was gonna say that. I got all these shows. I hope the next time we around, you come through just to come through. You know what I mean?
I'm always down to do some Chaka Khan songs at bar mitzvahs with you.
Yeah, we're gonna do it. Wedding Thrashers, everybody, look out. Listen, I'm on the real. Mad love to you, your family. You know the deal.
Thank you, Hoya. By the way, just before I go, I hit up my friend. I was like, "What's that band we were just talking about?" It's Ceremony. Have you heard Ceremony?
Oh hell yeah! Of course I know Ceremony. Yeah, hell yeah.
Right.
Listen, there's a whole bunch of new people out there that I think you would like. That it's on kind of your tip also. But listen, on the real, shout out to you. Everything you do, anything that you do musically, I want it first. That's all I want.
I appreciate that, brother. Thank you so much. This was
on
great.
The real, Rich. Everybody out there, you know the deal. Smokin Word Podcast. We back. Richie, one love. I'll hit you. I want to text you later, and I want your info. I'm gonna send you some shit, and Absolutely. I'll let you know when it drops. All right, brother. All right.
Happy, healthy New Year to you and your family.
You too, bro. One love, Rich. We out.
Peace.